100 races, 0 wins, a 2-time NASCAR Cup Series champion. Those 3 facts sitting side by side should not be possible. And yet that is the exact reality Kyle Busch is living through right now in 2026. This is not a story about one bad race or one difficult weekend. This is a story that started building more than a year ago, reached a new low at Martinsville Speedway during the Cookout 400, and is now pointing directly at one of the most uncomfortable questions in the sport. Is Kyle Busch's time at Richard Childress Racing running out? 2 things happened at Martinsville that made this situation impossible to ignore any further. One happened before the race even started. The other happened during it. Together, they told a complete and deeply concerning story. And 2026 being a contract year for Busch means the stakes attached to that story could not be higher. The Cookout 400 qualifying session at Martinsville Speedway set the tone before a single competitive lap had been run. Denny Hamlin went out and posted a 19.275-second lap to take pole position, the fastest time of the session. William Byron, Josh Berry, Ty Gibbs, and Shane Van Gisbergen all demonstrated genuine front-running speed. Then there was Kyle Busch. He qualified 34th, near the very back of the entire field. His own description of the car in the session left nothing open to interpretation. Sideways, undrivable, loose. When reporters followed up and asked whether the team could make the necessary adjustments before the race, his answer was effectively that no one knew. That is not a driver who is slightly off his rhythm. That is a driver who has zero confidence in the car and is working with a team that has no clear answer to the problem sitting directly in front of them. What Busch said next made the situation even more alarming. He told reporters he would need a caution to fall between lap 30 and lap 40 because his tires would be completely worn out by that point in the race. That specific request carried enormous weight when placed against one critical fact. There has not been a single Stage 1 caution at any race during the entire 2026 season. The one thing Busch said he needed to survive the opening stage was the one thing that had not happened anywhere all year. Before the green flag dropped on the Cookout 400, Kyle Busch had already mapped out exactly how the race would go wrong, and he was right on every single count. To understand why Martinsville hit as hard as it did, the full picture of Busch's season needs to be on the table. Kyle Busch has not won a NASCAR Cup Series race since June 2023. That is 100 races without a victory for a driver who holds 2 Cup Series championships and ranks among the most statistically accomplished competitors in the history of the sport. He is driving the number 8 car at Richard Childress Racing. Coming into Martinsville, he was sitting 23rd in the points standings, outside the playoff picture with no obvious path back into it. He had recorded 0 top 10 finishes in the 2026 season to that point. The 2 races immediately before Martinsville produced back-to-back finishes outside the top 20. For any driver, those numbers would be concerning. For Kyle Busch, they represent a gap between documented ability and current results that the sport has rarely seen at this level. Kevin Harvick addressed this situation directly on Speed with Harvick and Buxton. And what he said reflected what a significant portion of the NASCAR community has been thinking, without saying out loud. Harvick acknowledged that when Busch first arrived at RCR in the Gen 7 car, the team had genuine pace. They won races in that early period. The car was competitive and the results reflected it. But Harvick identified a clear turning point. Approximately halfway through that first season, the performance began declining. Slowly at first, then consistently. By Harvick's assessment, the team simply does not have it right now. And that phrase carries weight coming from a former Cup Series champion who spent years competing at the highest level and understands what a team looks like when it is functioning versus when it is not. The most significant part of Harvick's commentary was not the assessment of the car. It was his statement that he is worried about how this ends, with specific reference to the fact that 2026 is a contract year for Busch. The pressure to perform is at its absolute peak. The performance is at its absolute low. The race itself confirmed every concern that qualifying had raised. No early caution arrived, exactly as Busch had feared. By lap 46, he was already 1 lap down. That is less than a quarter of the way through the Cookout 400, and the number 8 was already being lapped by the leaders. The team radio captured the moment that frustration crossed into something harder to listen to. More rear brake. Give me drive off. Let me drive the car. That transmission is not a driver venting about a difficult afternoon. That is a driver telling his engineers that the car underneath him is not functional, that he cannot do his job because the equipment will not allow it. After Stage 1 concluded, all 3 RCR cars, not just the number 8, were running 26th or worse. That single data point removes any possibility of framing this as a Kyle Busch problem. When every car in the organization is at the back of the field simultaneously, the issue is not the driver. The issue is the team. When the full picture at Martinsville is assembled, from qualifying to the race, from Busch's pre-race predictions to the lap 46 lapdown moment to the team-wide Stage 1 results, it tells one story without ambiguity. Busch knew the car was bad before the race. He described exactly what would happen. The race confirmed it was worse than even he had anticipated. And Harvick had already identified this not as a recent development, but as a pattern that has been building since midway through Busch's first season at RCR. That means this decline has been in progress for well over a year. In NASCAR, a sustained pattern of poor performance across an entire organization is not corrected by a single setup change or a single strong weekend. It reflects something structural, in the equipment, in the development direction, or in the organization's ability to close the gap to the teams ahead of them. The combination of a 100-race winless streak, 0 top 10s in 2026, consecutive finishes outside the top 20, and a full team running at the back of the field is not a slump. It is a spiral. The contract year context transforms everything that is happening on track into something with direct career consequences. 2026 is a contract year for Kyle Busch at RCR. Every single race result this season is simultaneously a points result and a data point in what will become a contract negotiation at the end of the year. Busch is not just racing for a championship or for wins right now, he is racing for his future in the sport at its highest level. The question that is being asked across the NASCAR paddock, quietly but consistently, is straightforward. If RCR cannot find the speed to match what Busch is capable of delivering, what does the end of this season look like? 2 outcomes are now genuinely on the table. Either Richard Childress Racing identifies the source of the performance deficit and finds the speed to compete, or Kyle Busch finds a new opportunity with a different organization. Neither outcome is guaranteed, neither can be dismissed, and the longer the current pattern continues without a response, the more the second outcome moves from possibility toward probability. The concern is real, and the evidence supporting it is documented across multiple races and multiple data points. A car with no balance, no grip, and no long-run speed produces exactly the results being seen: radio frustrations, blow-ups, and finishes that bear no relationship to the driver's actual capability. That is the situation Kyle Busch is in right now. But the counterpoint exists, and it matters. Kyle Busch is a 2-time Cup Series champion. That level of ability is not erased by a bad car. He has won races before in difficult circumstances. He has demonstrated throughout his career the capacity to fight through adversity and produce results when the equipment gives him any opportunity to do so. Martinsville 2026 is a turning point in the most literal sense. Either the number 8 team begins solving the problem from this moment forward, or the spiral continues toward a conclusion that nobody connected to this organization wants to see. Both paths are open. Which one is taken will define the second half of the 2026 NASCAR Cup Series season. Richard Childress Racing is one of the most historic organizations in NASCAR. Championships have been won under that banner. The legacy of the team is built on decades of competition at the highest level of the sport. All 3 RCR cars running 26th or worse after Stage 1 at Martinsville is not a Kyle Busch problem. It is an RCR organizational problem. The team needs answers not only for Busch's career trajectory, but for the standing of the entire organization within the sport. If RCR cannot produce competitive equipment during a contract year for the most high-profile driver on their roster, the consequences extend well beyond one driver's next deal. The NASCAR community is watching every weekend. The conversation around RCR's direction as a competitive organization is now fully open. And it will not close until the results change. 100 races without a win. 0 top 10s in 2026. All 3 RCR cars at the back of the field at Martinsville. But those are the facts on the table right now. The central question has 2 parts. Is this a car problem, a team problem, or something that runs even deeper? And can any of it be fixed before the contract year expires? Drop your answer in the comments right now and answer the second question too. If you were Kyle Busch in this situation, what would you do? If you want full coverage of every development with Kyle Busch, RCR, and the 2026 NASCAR Cup Series season as it unfolds, subscribe and turn on notifications, because this story is moving fast and the next chapter comes at the next race.